Hi guys, a few people in the comments have asked me about the build and do an instructional video about the build, but Alchemical Science and Jordan, they've done this quite well, so I'd recommend going to Alchemical Science and having a look at their DIY build instructions, which is what I did. I just basically replayed it over and over and paused it at the parts that were necessary at the time of stage of building, and yeah, it was great. But I will show you my final setup, and I could actually tidy it up a little bit more, but this is pretty much the finished product. So I've just added 2 boards onto the back there. I just put this on yesterday, actually, just a little taco that came from Temu, and that's just a wire that runs up to the spark plug lead, and that wraps around the spark plug lead and picks up that firing RPM, and that seems to work quite well. It sits at about 850 RPM. So the only thing that I've bought extra is I've put on this braided hose at the back here. So it just gives me flexibility, and you can see it's quite low to the ground, and I didn't really want anything rigid like a copper pipe, that was going to get caught on things. I got the flexibility of that braided hose there, and that's got 3/4 fittings on it. That was $34 Australian from Irrigation Shop. So apart from that, that's the original valve, and it's kind of like a little filtered venturi inlet there. You can actually add water through this little compartment here, so you can just pour your water straight in and top up your bubbler if needed. So that's me ionizing plug there, and at the time I was in such a rush, I basically just strapped this on and positioned it in a way that it wasn't touching anything. So that's the Thunderstorm generator there. I could actually face that downwards and bring this all in within the frame quite easily, and run this basically this way, move the battery box to the other side, and have a much more tidier kind of setup. So the other thing I did change was the braided hose, the high temperature hose that was Teflon lined. I'm not sure, but I think I had an air leak in the just in the fittings at the ends there. So for some reason my carbon monoxide output was really high with the braided hose. So I could have actually just wrapped it all up with silicone, but I've actually just got a bit of copper pipe, smooth copper pipe, and put that in, and my carbon monoxide levels came down 90% as soon as I did that. So I think it was an air leak issue and not a hose issue. So the only other issue I had was the exhaust flange bolts on the motor were a little bit narrow for this exhaust flange. So I had to file these holes in a bit, but because of that I couldn't put on a proper hex head, because I basically couldn't turn it because it was hitting the barrel. But what I've done is I've just used some M8 hex key bolts. So these are a flat bullet head, and they're really nice. They worked really nice. They're stainless steel. And I also ended up using them in the venturi fitting. So originally this looked like this. So you can see the adapter plate, the carby, the filter. Here we have the adapter plate, the carby and the filter. And what I've done is, this is the original bolt. So once you put the venturi fitting on, this is the original venturi fitting from Plasmoid Power. So I've just put a nut on the back of that bolt. That's a M8. And then through here it goes to M6, I think, maybe M4. We're metric here in Australia, so forgive me for that. So going into here is another M8, and I've used the just the Allen hex keyed bolt, and I just had some laying around, so but easy to get at a nut and bolt place. So yeah, so I think in the future I'm actually going to move this down so it's straight up and down, and run my pipes inside the frame, and this will be sticking out perpendicular at a 90 degree, and so this will come out this way and into the venturi with a bit of a twist. So you can see my air filter got moved out probably 1.5 inches there. So because of that, it was hitting the frame. So I've just cut these off, and I could actually put another pipe there and run these around, and run another pipe around here and connect it all back up if I wanted to. So that's it. That's my generator setup, and it's pretty exciting stuff. You can see why the engineers are drooling over this, because it basically does the job of a catalytic converter and so much more. So in cars you'll be able to toss that catalytic converter away, and this is doing a so much better job, and plus it's not restricting airflow at all. So a catalytic converter, I mean, it's going through these tiny little porous holes and filters, and so you've still got a really open airflow system. So, and the other thing is, I actually saw this in one of Malcolm's prototypes, but of course, because you've now got oxygen coming out of the exhaust, I mean, you have the option of looping that back into the bubbler and into the carburetor system. So if you want to make a car go really fast, or a motor, you add a turbo. And if you want to make it go even faster, you add a supercharger. And the whole point of a supercharger is forcing the air into the motor, into the carburetor system, which takes load off the pistons, and it's basically pushing the air in instead of it being sucked in by the pistons. So with all this exhaust flow, you now have the option of looping that back into the system. The only thing you would have to do is, because this air is very hot coming out of here, you would probably have to run that through an intercooler of some sort, just so when the air goes back in, you're getting cold air. So you've got that temperature difference going through the vajra of hot air and cold air. But apart from that, you've got oxygen-rich fuel coming back in, oxygen-rich air. So yeah, so that's her, and really happy with it. I can start her up for you. I'll show my process of starting it. So I basically close off the valve there, turn on the fuel, the choke is on. Now it's pretty early Sunday morning, so I'm just going to do this very, very quickly so the neighbours still talk to me in the morning. And I start it. So that's it. So it runs really, really nicely. There's no throttle on this, so everything is governed according to the load coming off the generator. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what these engineers do once they start fitting this up to cars. And yeah, I mean, if we can supercharge the systems using the pressure from the exhaust, I think we're going to see some really fast and efficient motors coming out of this. And you add on to the top of that the fuel efficiency and clean air, and you basically got a win-win. I mean, there's no drawbacks. So my next project is to get this Vajra glowing at night and see if I can see a bit of lightning action, a bit of plasma action. That's my next venture. But there she is. And, I mean, this is first generation Thunderstorm generators, and I'm sure they're going to go a long way after the guys like George Lush and Acris Industries. After they've made everything more efficient and tidied things up, I think we're going to see some extraordinary units coming out and some extraordinary numbers and results as well. So I'm going to go back inside before the neighbours come out, and thank you very much. Thanks Malcolm, and thanks everyone at the Plasmod Power team. So yeah, they were great.